Welcome, friends. This is Under the Arch Sports. I'm Eric, and today we're going to recap Mizzou's 34-24 win over Central Michigan. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, find us on Facebook, find us on Instagram, and if you like this video, give us some likes. We need it. So let's get into it now. Mizzou 34-24 winner over the Central Michigan Chippewas. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't a blowout, but I'm going to pat myself on the back here. It's kind of what I expected. Just check this out.
I think there's going to be a little bit of that kind of just getting the cobwebs out, just kind of feeling your way through the first quarter type situation. I think Mizzou will get it going. And I think they're going to keep Central Michigan at arm's length for the most of this game and end up winning this game 33-20.
Yeah, so that's what I thought was going to happen, and it's roughly how it went. So let's look at some stats here. Connor Basilak, 21 out of 32, 257 yards, passing, a pair of touchdowns. Steady, solid. Tyler Beatty, 25 rushes, 203 yards, pair of scores, one rushing touchdown, 3 receptions, 40 yards receiving, and a second touchdown there. Blaze Aldridge, want to highlight him, 10 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and 3.5 sacks. That is a monster stat line. I think it's worth noting that discipline was a big factor. Props to the entire Mizzou team on this one. 0 turnovers compared to 2 for Central Michigan, along with the muff punt that got overturned. Penalties. Central Michigan had 10 for 80 yards. Mizzou didn't pick up their first penalty through almost 3/4 of the game. They ended up with 4 for 19 yards. That's outstanding, especially for the first game of the year. Looking at some offensive highlights, you got to start with Tyler Beatty. He was a monster out there on Saturday. He gained 10 pounds in the offseason, according to the broadcast, and it showed. He looked bigger, and he ran between the tackles like I've never seen him do before. So that was encouraging because I was very worried about him between the tackles trying to be a feature back. So that's exciting to see for Mizzou. He was the best player on the field, I thought. Connor Basilak, as I said, steady. He had a pair of touchdowns, which is encouraging considering he had less than 10 all of last season. He hit the first deep ball on the very first play of the game, but then after that, he missed a bunch of deep balls. And they weren't overthrown by like 10 yards or anything, but they were just like a half a step too far. So you want to see that get cleaned up. Same issue, honestly. The offensive line started the game pretty shaky, in my opinion, but they did clean it up. They got better as the game went on. I don't know if that's just in-game adjustments, I guess, or that the better conditioning or whatever it was. They got better as the game went on. Pass protection was good pretty much all day. I will say that. Looking at Mookie Cooper, it was his first game of football in like 3 years. So he had 7 touches for 12 yards. You'd like to see more than that, but a little bit of that might be the fact that the way he got the ball. He got the ball on jet sweeps, screens, short stuff right around the line of scrimmage. He did not, at least when he got the ball, it was not on downfield passing routes, which I would have liked to have seen a little more of. Maybe we will as the season goes on. I think he can be a weapon on a hitch and go or a post or whatever else. Speaking of receiving, 9 receivers caught a pass, and Dominic Lovett also had 2 targets, did not catch a ball as a 10th target. So spreading the wealth around, which is nice. I don't think we're going to see that throughout the season. I think this is, as much as anything, kind of feeling the coaching staff, feeling your way through the roster, getting guys in there, seeing what they got, just figuring out what rotation they're going to go with. Defensively, takeaways there. you have to start with defensive line. Ugh. It was rough. The run defense got absolutely gashed all day. It was not pretty. It has to be better, or Mizzou doesn't have a chance against Kentucky or a whole lot of SEC teams going forward. The defense had 9 sacks, which is a mind-blowing amount of sacks. But only 3.5 of those came from the defensive line. 3.5 of those went to Blaze Aldridge. Let's see, who else? Sean Robinson had one, and I believe it was Devin Nicholson had one. So 3.5 out of the defensive line is a good number, but I think what this highlights is a lot of the pressure started once they started blitzing in the second half, because that's when all of the sacks seem to happen. Which you want to see your front four generate more pressure against a team like Central Michigan, because when you play better teams, your Georgias, your A&Ms, even your Tennessees, if your front four can't generate pressure and you have to blitz, that area where linebackers are vacating is going to be wide open. So it's not something that you want to have to rely on. I think part of this also could be the result of not having Nick Bolton. I'm wondering if having a player like Bolton out there covered up a lot of shortcomings for the defensive line. I don't know that, but that may show itself as we see more games this season. That's something to keep an eye on, I think. Blaze Aldridge, as I mentioned at the beginning, incredible stat line. 10 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. That is Conference Player of the Week type numbers. But he was invisible in the first half. Let's be real. We didn't call his name, I think, except for 1 sack in the first half. Maybe. I'm going off memory there. I could be wrong. Either way, he was not a factor in the first half. That has to change. Tackles for loss and sacks out of a linebacker, that's blitzing. Which, all right, credit him for being effective on the blitz. But as we said, ideally, you don't have to blitz that much. Looking at the secondary for Missouri, Ennis Rakestraw did not have a good first half. Picked it up a little bit in the second half. The first drive in particular, they were picking on Rakestraw hardcore, and they were getting what they wanted, which is not what you want to see. Caleb Evans, I think he's going to be a starter. Had a pick, played great all around. And so I think he's going to be a starter. I think he just has to be. And then Jalen Carlise, I'm going to say right now, I've done as much research as possible. I've seen his name pronounced Carlise or Carlise, so I apologize if I'm getting it wrong. I'm going with Carlise because that's what they said on the broadcast. Either way, he was out the first half due to a targeting penalty in the Mississippi State game last season, which is mind-numbing. But in the second half, it was noticeable that he was out there. He was a difference maker. That's a big part of the reason why the entire secondary played better, was him being out there. So that's good to see that there's a difference maker out there. Overall, the defense started real bad, got to okay. They need to be better against Kentucky and going forward. Some other takeaways from this game. The crowd size. That is a much discussed thing. At kickoff, it was pretty brutal. I know online they were talking about a big traffic jam to a car wreck or something on I-70 coming from St. Louis. Maybe that was a factor. It did fill in a little bit, but still, under 50,000. That's not good enough. If you weren't at the game and you're whining and you just chose not to go, you don't get to whine. That's my opinion on it. But Eric, why weren't you there? Well, remember, I'm in England, so don't whine at me. So yeah, that crowd. Woo. Harrison Mevis, the thicker kicker. That kick right before halftime, 53-yarder right down the pipe into the stands. I'm legitimately wondering if that is the best collegiate kick I've ever seen. A 53-yarder right down the middle that had the leg, that it went into the stands? Are you kidding me? It legitimately may have been good from 65 yards. That's crazy. Again, as I said, for this game overall, defensive line, specifically running the football, or defending the run rather, worse than expected. Everything else, about what you'd expect, I think. The secondary gave up 295 yards passing, but Central Michigan they abandoned the run essentially because they got behind. They just stopped trying to run, so every play was a pass. Of course, the passing numbers are going to be big. That said, everybody needs to play better, I think, if they want to beat Kentucky. That is the next game for Missouri, going down to Lexington. That's going to be on September 11th, the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. I imagine there might be some sort of pre-game ceremony, moment of silence, something of that nature. Combining that with the first conference game for Kentucky under the lights, I imagine it's going to be pretty full house, tough environment. That'll be on the SEC network. David and I will be back, hopefully, on Tuesday with our preview of this game. That's all I've got for this one. Keep an eye out for that video.